Okay. Hello, Jonny. How are you today?
I'm very well, Roger. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you again. We've had all this out of camera, but yeah, you were just telling me about the new addition in the household.
Yes, we have a new baby in the house today, and Roger.
I will say congratulations again.
Thank you. Roger warmly congratulated me earlier with great gusto until I let on that the baby is actually a small cockatiel, which my wife charged out the weekend. Decided she needed more entertainment in her life. I wasn't enough for her, so we have a new baby in the house. And if you hear any squawking coming from the next room, I assure you that is the cockatiel, and nothing more nefarious than that.
We might be having a bit of a chat with other members of the team to say if you've said this story many times before, just to make sure that we're cross-checking our information. So today's podcast is going to be about Jonny Grant. It's going to be about the department.co.uk. I'm going to put some links onto the video. So Jonny, you've already given me a bit of a brief, so I have an idea, but for the viewers, we need to discuss today what your background is, where you started from, where the company started from, what was the vision at the very early days, and then how did it develop over time to where you are today. And I'm guessing today with your team, with your new direction or same direction, we'll find out soon. How does it look like today? What's your mission? What's your vision? And through that, we'll see what the future looks like as well. But yeah, let's take it away. If you can give us a bit of a background.
Yeah, that's a lot of questions in one. I guess we're taking us back to my first company that I founded in 2006, simply because we talked before, Roger, about innovation and how innovation comes in several forms and in several varieties. And in the first instance here was 2006, and for the very first time we had the availability of digital cameras that we could sort of pick up in our hand. Prior to that, we'd had HD film cameras, but they were huge and cumbersome and very expensive. And actually, people were still shooting on film as a result. It was more economical to shoot on film. That's how long ago we're talking. Even though with a roll of film, it was about 60 quid a minute, I think, by the time you shot and processed that film on 35mm. And these cameras came out. There was a Sony Z1, I think it was, which was the first sort of handheld HD camera, like a little camcorder, if you like, that shot on HD.
What year was this?
2006.
Nice.
And we were putting together a sort of new company with a couple of mates of mine to sort of handle really the film projects that we were bringing in between us. And we decided to go out strong on this arm that we were the world's first ever digital only film production studio. And that was our whole premise, really. Not just that we only shot on digital formats, but that at this very time in history as well, all of a sudden there were these different formats that people required film for. Before that, it'd basically been TV commercials, and that was about it. And now all of a sudden there were virals, as the sort of buzzword was at the time. But there was also video banner ads, if you remember those things, popping up on your screen and that kind of content. So we were shooting specifically digital content on digital formats, which was great. It was a really, really good innovative premise. It was a very good competitive advantage for all of about 12 months before every single one of our competitors decided that they too also shot digital for digital formats, and our competitive advantage was over.
Did you manage to get enough of a benefit from your unique selling proposition for the 12 months that you were around?
Well, I certainly got my exit, and I sold my remaining shares back to the partners for a reasonable sum, but nothing that was going to set me up on my yacht in Barbados. So when I was sort of exiting that company around 2011, 2012, we had just won a project to direct the opening ceremony for the UEFA Champions League final. And this was really combining a little bit of I actually studied theatre, and it was combining some of the sort of live theatre arts kind of side of my background along with film content, because we had a film that starred Gary Lineker racing through the streets of London, and then he eventually got a ball into camera, and the sort of camera lens smashed, and then that ball was fired out from underneath the screens into the stadium in Wembley, and that sort of kicked off the opening ceremony. And doing that really sort of reignited my love for the live space. And whilst that was happening, there were a couple of sort of interesting theatre companies who were breaking through, who were really saying, and this goes back to the innovation point, innovation not necessarily having to be technological. Theatre had been for 2,500 years, since the Greeks really invented it, had been a stage here and an audience there, and never the two should meet. And all of a sudden there were a couple of companies here who are really saying, well, why is that the way we perceive theatre to be? And can our audiences get involved? Can they have some agency? Could they even affect the outcomes? Can they change the narrative? Can they be part of the story? And my business partner, who at the time we were directing the opening ceremony together, he had opened a very cool venue underneath Waterloo Station, 60,000 square foot of these massive Victorian archways that had been left abandoned since the war. And they'd opened them up and turned them into this amazing atmospheric space, very, very vibey. And these companies that I'm talking about, companies like Punchdrunk, companies like Secret Cinema, they were very early in their journeys, really. But this space to them was like absolutely perfect for creating something really, really interesting and novel. Can you hear my squawking cockatiel, by the way?
A very faint squeak there.
Okay, okay, good.
Rested now.
I'll have a word otherwise.
Well, it all sounds like it's gone past the production of just a clip of film to a performing art.
Yeah, indeed. So this is very much sort of merging the two and seeing these groups coming through, and they were calling themselves immersive theatre. This was the first time I'd really heard the use of the word immersive in any other than a sort of literary format, I suppose. And I was really just a fanboy at the time. I thought these productions were extraordinary. Secret Cinema did a production of Battle for Algiers, which was incredible down there. And the first show they created was with Punchdrunk. And both these companies have gone on to be extremely successful theatre companies, but this was them right at their nascent stages. And I was convinced that sooner or later the world of live event marketing and experiential marketing would be obsessed with this like I was. So we went around and collected a whole bunch of the creatives that we thought were doing the very best work in the space. None of them had any representation. They all jumped on board and signed up immediately onto a roster of talent, because that was a model that I knew from the film world. In the film world, you have a roster of directors and you represent them out to your clients and you sell them in. So this was, I sort of said to Hamish, my business partner, let's do that for live experience, because no one does that. And let's bill ourselves as the world's first immersive agency. As with unfortunately with the digital video for digital sources, fast forward 5 years and every single Tom, Dick and Harry who has a small experiential agency is calling themselves an immersive agency. There's immersive coffee shops, immersive toilets,
immersive toilets,
immersive everything's. So it's it kind of almost became a little bit of a dirty word, but I think that's hopefully that gives you a guide on how I got to where I am now, which is back working with, we span out a project from the agency, which I went and ran in the US for a few years, and I'm now back working with the department, helping them develop their offering and improve their position within the space.
So you started back in the video production, purely video production, and it was a case of moving into the digital revolution early on, where the digital filming was just starting to become a thing, and you just jumped in with both feet. And then you now progressed into the second company, which was around the immersive approach to the video production. So it's more of an event or experience like production. And from there it became, again, mainstream. So this second stage that you've just described, about what years was this? What was the...
So that was 2013 we founded the department. So it's 12 years old now.
What happened in 2020 and 2019 during COVID? What did that change the way you were working at that time?
It was a very complex time, because firstly we had spun out this new company right at the beginning of 2020. We had an amazing US anchor investor, a guy called Kevin P. Ryan, who's a very brilliant guy, and sold DoubleClick to Google, and is owner of MongoDB and all of these kind of. He's a very, very impressive man. So he had got involved in one of the companies that we were rolling out, and that had all kicked off literally 3-4 weeks before COVID hit. So I had actually sort of semi-exited the company at that point to go and run this other business. And of course, when you're, we had a few sort of continuing clients prior to that, particularly BMW and Mini, BMW Group, but we were doing Meta's big Europe, Middle East and Africa get together on an annual basis, 4,000 people.
Nice.
Getting together. But obviously during the pandemic, that was something that got killed, and I don't think has ever happened again certainly in the same format. We had done that for I think 3 or 4 years before that. And all of our experiences, pretty much all of our experiences, were based on large scale immersive experiences where people naturally were in close proximity, and etc. So we had a pipeline we had a very healthy pipeline of confirmed work on the announcement of lockdown, and that entire pipeline disappeared, I think, in 10 days.
Wow. When people say that that COVID and the lockdown has, impacted the way they work, for some people it was worse than others. And for your kind of business, 10 days, the business disappeared essentially.
Yeah. We were something like 30 people before, and I think we were 6 or 7 by the time it opened back up again.
Wow.
It was extremely difficult, really.
Okay. So did you conduct any work during COVID that was different than what you used to do, or did you attempt to just keep the projects that didn't require you to be face to face?
We did, but again, every event company in the world was suddenly doing hybrid events. It sort of coincided. I kind of feel like Web3 would never have become Web3 was it not for the pandemic, really, because all of a sudden everyone was doing metaverse experiences and all of that stuff.
It did give immersive a different meaning.
Well, this is it, right? Exactly right. I mean, look, immersive was suddenly took on a very certainly more diverse and interesting meaning, and it's one that I embrace absolutely, because I am fascinated by new technology. I've always been fascinated by new technology when it comes around the corner. Some of it I will not participate in. I think I said earlier that my social media presence is very little.
Well, you've got the bare minimum, so that's good.
There you go. Exactly. And some of it I love, and whilst I'm not a big gamer or whatever, we've done all sorts of AR and VR projects. We've shot 360 films, etc. So we absolutely embrace the other side of the immersive technology, if you like. We do a lot of big projection mapping type projects, and lots of. We've got a project at the moment in Drum Sheds. Do you know where Drum Sheds is in East London?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It's a very, very cool big warehousey club space in East London. And we've got a partnership there with Spotify where we put this big sort of immersive installation of these screens that run around in a sort of 270-degree
Sorry,
space.
Jonny. It looks like your camera is frozen. Do you want to turn it off and on so we'll bring you back?
And he's back, maybe.
Not yet. Technical difficulties.
Are you planning on using the video of this?
Yes, of course. As well as. So ideally.
I did not know that.
No, another thing to include in the brief, I guess.
I'm in my jogging kit.
It's fine. We're having it online anyway. As far as I'm concerned, you might not be wearing anything below that, so it's fine.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely not going to show you because I am wearing tights.
Oh, there you go. Are you cycling afterwards, or is this your comfortable attire?
No, I went for a long run on Hampstead Heath this morning with a buddy of mine, and I have not yet had an opportunity between calls to freshen up.
The weather definitely supported you today.
Well, if I'd known I was going to be on camera, you see, you've actually got me caught in my broom cupboard here. My wife is dominating our living space there. I've been relegated here, which is why we've got these glorious wardrobes, and I've got hats all over the wall in front of me, but it's definitely not a space, an on-camera space. But there we go.
You say that if you were to turn the camera around and have the hats just hanging off the wall, that becomes its own immersive experience. Then it's a sneak peek.
It would definitely have been a better backdrop, that's for sure.
Well, I'm actually looking at your website as we're speaking, and I'm almost getting excited by the hero video that you've got playing in the background. So you guys are not going to be able to watch this, but it says brand experiences in the real world, and in the background I'm seeing loads of events and loads of performances happening. But the way you've been speaking about the immersiveness, and that's post-COVID, and then during COVID, I'm guessing it's going to be a bit different afterwards. In here, you're not immersing people into a digital experience, which is what most people would think an immersion is. You're actually bringing the experience out in the real world and immersing them in the real world in it. And that's not with the use of technology as such in the digital environment like VR and AR, even though you did mention that as well. This is more about getting an experience to exist and then land people in it. So that's fascinating, because it looks like there's a lot of production happening behind the scenes to get that, the right feel, the right environment.
Yeah, it certainly is. And I think we were talking about the Drum Sheds example at the moment, which is a really beautiful tech installation. That's actually. And it's fully interactive, by the way. So as you move in there and you wave, all the screens will change and the visuals will change around you. It's a beautiful execution. Again, another different way of immersing your audience in that space. And you can see that we've dropped the immersion word from the website precisely on the kind of chat we discussed earlier. But it's but there's definitely a continuation in that shift towards audiences wanting to have a very three-dimensional experience, a very engrossing experience. Audiences are getting harder and harder and harder to please. The standards by which they hold you are getting higher and higher, which is a great challenge. That's what drives innovation, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And the competition within the world, it's like you said before, with every new something becoming the norm, like with the digital cameras, it was once the new thing, and now I can't think. It's like you're special if you're not using a digital camera today. It's gone back to front. And then the same happened later on with this immersive experience, that people recognized its value and just adopted it over time. And it does take time, and some people do it faster than others. But that's why the early adopters and the people that are able to drive that innovation tend to be at the forefront. But then they have a very small window opportunity to capitalize on it before it becomes the norm. But you need to be able to recognize it. Otherwise, you might see a technology and you're thinking, I'm not sure, before you know it's everywhere. And talking about that, then we're coming to today. What's your direction today? How are you focusing your efforts in your mission, your vision, the way you work? What's the result you're trying to achieve today?
Well, look, if I say AI, I'll just dump myself in with the entire rest of the planet, all sort of desperately struggling to keep up with a rate of innovation and development that we've never experienced before in our life. There's always this talk of this kind of hockey stick of innovation where the rate of is exponential, and undoubtedly it feels like we're there. Undoubtedly, I've never been in an environment where it feels like the new upgrade, the version, the update that is not a year away, it's weeks away. Gemini 3 dropped 3 days ago.
Have you tested it yet? We had that discussion last time.
Yeah,
I can see your mind blown.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a 2.1 upgrade. It's a full step change. I created a just as a totally speculative thing. I jumped on and I created a sort of turning D for the department, a 3-dimensional spinning D, and around it 100 nodes, which if you clicked on one of them, it would play any radio station internationally from around the world. If you clicked on it again, it would go through to one of the pieces of work on our website. It took me about 30 minutes to create that, and I've never coded anything in my life before then. This,
vibe coding, isn't it?
The vibe coding is extraordinary, and it said to me something like, "Okay, I'll be the brains, you be my arms. You need to go and do this, that, and the third thing." And I thought, wow, that's a turn in that is a turn in the universe where my computer is telling me just to you just be a good human, jog on, do what I say, and everything's going to be fine.
Whenever someone says that, that's when you need to be afraid. Be very afraid.
Amen. So it's really been, I've certainly been leading the agency on trying to keep abreast of these changes as they come, trying to make sure that we are actually instilling some structured learning, make sure that we're all bringing out, because you know what it's like in a creative agency when there's 20 of you all diving on different projects, discovering new tools, making sure that you're sharing that learning, bringing that into a sort of central source so that we're all increasing our ability. Because it's not, it's in an ideal world from an agency owner perspective, it's not that that's ever going to generate a reduction in your headcount. It's more that you're just going to be able to service so many more briefs, clients, make so much more money with that same headcount or with a slightly larger headcount. So those efficiencies, and I find it really exciting, like thrillingly exciting, about how I can now take a conversation and turn it into a whole thought leadership piece in the space of 15 minutes. And present that beautifully, and generate imagery and video, and I'm doing all of that, even editing that video by voice command. I do a lot of my work. I barely type anything now. Everything is voice command on my computer. I've really stopped typing.
Your choice?
Yeah, it's my choice.
Nice.
But again, it's just efficiency. If I'm writing an email, that's 2 to 3 times faster than I type, and I type quite quickly. So it's because it's now able to recognize what you tried to say, rather than putting something literally down as it hears it. That's such a game changer as well. So all of that process, and I think we were talking last time about step changes, and I very much foresee the next step change being zero keyboard and mouse. I can see that very quickly being where we're simply going to go, no, over there, this, that, and the instructions, and we will develop a kind of shorthand verbal command function with our computer. And then the sort of scarier layer on that, I guess Elon Musk would be shaking his head and laughing at me, because I'm sure he would be saying, no, it's the Neuralink that's coming around the corner, where we don't have to say it, we don't have to do it, we just have to think it.
And for some people, that's actually a massive improvement on their life quality today, because that's mostly what the Neuralink is designed to do. But it's like you said before, it's designed as a new technology for a specific purpose. But the moment it becomes widespread, and the purpose deviates from just one, but it becomes widespread in its uses, then it can go backwards quite fast in some situations. Now, Neuralink, it's almost like the how invasive that kind of technology can be, or to our thought process today, it can be invasive. I don't think it's too far away from actually being able to be a completely external device, where it detects electromagnetic waves of your brain thoughts without being inside, and then using machine learning to decide what each one of those thoughts means, so it can start understanding it from outside your head. So if someone was to come to you today and said, new computer for you, AR based, it's going to be glasses, a wearable device which already exists to some degree, and you use that for all your work, would you attempt it? Would you try it? And if it was practical enough, would you use it? The answer is probably yes.
I mean, this is, and there is a stupefaction bit. I always say this, that I think one of the biggest threats to humanity is not that robots are, computers are going to build robots that come and kill us, although it does look like that could happen quite easily. Yeah, very much so. I don't know whether you've seen the Chinese military have the wolves now.
Oh, no, I've not seen that.
Yeah, they're kind of like the Boston Robotics, but with a mounted machine gun, and very impressive targeting, and they're meant for sort of beach landings and all that stuff. Very terrifying. Of course that's an existential threat, but there is a sort of, I have a greater fear of a society where we are so stupid as a result. Think of it this way: I used to be able to drive north, south, east, west across London. I'd go down this road, I would take the third road on the right, it would be called Ship Street, and I'd take the second left, it was Bow Lane, and then I'd take the and I knew all of the names of those streets, I knew all of those patterns and details, and then so my brain just lost the ability to do that, because it didn't have to do that. And I worry that we're just going to lose the ability to, and I see people already that they don't think, they don't produce documents anymore, they don't do the thinking required. There was a very interesting study at MIT recently that put three groups doing their dissertation against each other. One of them had no access to any kind of technology or search engine. One had access to Google, and the other had access to ChatGPT. And between the groups that had no access and the group that had access to GPT, they found a reduction in cognitive function of about 50%.
You mean during the attempt?
During the creation of the dissertation. And the third group could something like they could only recall like 40% of the content, whereas the first group could recall 75-80%, because they'd authored it, because they'd written it, because they'd done the thinking. And I'm just that's my fear, is a world where we haven't done the thinking, and we're not needing to use our brains, and we just become sloppy.
Yeah. There are two things that I'm having thoughts about through that. One of them, it reminds me of a story back in the day when books were first becoming a thing. Never mind TVs and afterwards. But there's a bit of a repetition of history where there are apparently written down documents that say that back in the day when written word was becoming the main way of learning, that philosophers of the time said that this is how society fails, because now you're relying on following a trail of thought rather than creating a trail of thought. And that was their take on books being created. Now, obviously, the moment we could put things on paper, then we don't need to remember every bit of information in the world. We can expand our memory, if you will, and go and find that knowledge without having to create it. And that superseded the sharing of information, superseded the lack of the ability to create every bit of information. And that meant that we can do a lot more stuff. So that was a positive. And then when TV was becoming mainstream back in the 70s, 80s, and was coming out, and people were stuck watching and consuming information from television, then a similar story came out again, saying that that's the dumb box. You watch TV all day, you're just going to become dumb because you're not thinking anymore, you're not engaging in things. And there's a reality in that, yes. But also it expanded the vision, the imagination of people, because they're no longer in their own little bubbles. They're allowed to enter worlds that have no access to physically. And then from there, we now come to the AI. It gives you a lot of ability of doing stuff. But if you're replacing the things you do every day, or even just Google Maps, like we were saying before, replaces your need to remember spaces, you do lose something by not testing it, but it does give you a lot more. So again, it's a case of where it's going to normalize. I'm not sure if it's, the history being proof for the future. It's not always the case, but it's a good indication that by having those abilities, certain people that are the people that are actually going to make big changes for the positive will now have the tools to do that they wouldn't have before. And people that wouldn't have, or people that are just going to consume it for the sake of consuming it, then maybe they won't be any better off or worse off by having it available to them. So again, it's a situational result, isn't it? It's down to where you find yourself and how you use the tool that's given to you.
Well, I hope you are right, Roger. I hope you are right.
I mean, worst comes to worst, we go back to zero and then we start all over again.
There you go. I look forward to your version of the future, that's for sure.
Actually, I was talking to another videographer, video production company the other day, and he was talking specifically about the action of video editing. And this is the next question for you. That's why I'm bringing it up. It's about in terms of the practicality of the workflows that you have today and where the shortfalls of today are. And in that question, he actually said, when it comes to editing a video, largely for the last 30 years, the process has not changed. Like the practicality of getting a video, overlaying it with another video, and then cutting another one and stitching it in, finding some way to go from one video to the next and do the transition, or even having some sound on top or overlaid sound, etc. That's pretty much the same result. We've been trying to do that for the last 30 years and it's not changed. The tools have, and the ways to do it have. But then he said, I guess if I was to choose one of the things that's been a bottleneck for me personally, he said, is the thumbnail. So what do you mean? He said the thumbnail of the video is only as much as you can see of however big that clip might be. So you zoom out to see the timeline in your processing dashboard, and all you can see is a little photo, and that's all the insights you get for that video. And in order to understand whether or not it's the right one, or whether or not it's stitching, or whether the situation that it's showing within that video is the correct one for where you're placing it, you just need to go and play back and watch it through, and that takes so much time. And he said, I guess the next innovation, the next big thing for video production specifically and video editing would be a way to be able to go through that timeline in a more dynamic way. So I'm not stuck having to follow the second by second, but maybe produce some depth to it. I said, well, how would you do that? And his approach was, well, in VR, we've all seen Minority Report when it was coming out, and it was the big thing. Today, that's a reality. Maybe around the corner, there's some kind of video editing software creation company that will create a timeline that's not just the straight line, but it expands and you can see how things are played. Good idea. Now, who's going to crack that? Let's see. What about you? What do you think in terms of the bottlenecks that you see today and how those bottlenecks can be broken out of? Or what dangers? Well, we spoke about the dangers of AI, but specifically in your industry, what does that look like?
Well, I'm kind of, it was only a few years ago that I was sat there going, God, what the hell did I decide to go into live events for? What was that move? During COVID, it felt like the world's most stupid industry to be involved in. And funnily enough, here we are 3 years later, and it actually feels like maybe we'll be the ones who are left standing with a lot of it. I think a lot of digital marketing, a lot of, relatively speaking, any task that can be completed by a computer is in the process of being automated, and the process is between them being automated. And I think that's where the bottlenecks are being removed left, right, and center at a rate of knots. And you can't do that in the physical world. It's not, unfortunately, you'll find that obviously with stuff like accounting and reconciling the budget for a project, that's obviously becoming a task way easier. Creating the planning, pitching is, for me, actually is the biggest bottleneck for me. So we had a pitch not so long ago for a big media company, and we received where the tender had got to in our team internally of an afternoon, and myself and my business partner sat in a pub, and we weren't feeling like we weren't excited by it. We didn't feel like it really landed, and the two of us just built a load of brand new video assets from nothing. Again, just voice commanding into AI and producing these videos. And I remember walking into the room and playing these videos to the client and then howling with laughter. And I was like, "We got it. That's it." Like, we've nailed it, because one of the big bottlenecks in a brief is relying on your client's imagination to be able to understand what you mean by this small amount of text turning into something real, visual, beautiful. And sometimes you'd get a guy to do a render, but now all of a sudden I can do a video of what that experience might be, and I've created it in a matter of minutes, and that is a big old bottleneck. Many more to remove, I'm sure, in history as we go forwards. But
yeah, actually, with that, it made me think then, in terms of your industry, the pitch, like you said, we are visual creatures. We do consume visually a lot better than we would just from text, because, like you said, text relies on a whole lot of imagination. And if we put that in GPU terms, that's a lot of processing that your brain needs to do in order to get an understanding of what you're actually reading out. And for some people, that's great. But when you try to do it in a small period of time, then that becomes a bottleneck. But at the same time, when it comes to decisions, people make decisions through emotional connections and then rationalize those decisions based on the rationale that they put forward, the logic, the front of the brain. But now you're saying that you can actually go through your pitch, generating those emotions by showing something visual, which by the end of that pitch means that the person is already sold. They saw something they like, visually pleasing, gives the concept of what they're here for, and then suddenly they're like, you've done that in the brief. Imagine what you're going to do as the actual result of the service that you provide to me. Yeah,
and it's not a representation. Ultimately, ordinarily in the past, I'd have had to describe that scene, or I'd have to draw one frame and draw another frame of it. But now I've just said that's what it's going to look like.
Yeah,
there it is. No imagination required. That's what you're getting. And
so what bottlenecks are you thinking of physically? Like you said, in the real world, there are bottlenecks that you can't fix.
No, that's what I mean. No, in the real world, unfortunately, this technology is not going to ever be able to remove those bottlenecks, which means that there will always be a requirement to some degree for but even when I say that, you talk about that in hosting terms, for example. Immediately in hosting terms, do we have a screen with an avatar on that with whom you can interact with pretty much in the same way as you can with a human? Sure,
that's possible. Yeah, at some point, I guess. But
no, it's already possible.
when it comes to physical limitations, I guess you're now only limited by what a Chinese Boston Dynamics machine gun dog can do.
And on that note,
yeah, I think on that note we can close this off.
Brilliant.
Thank you very much, Jonny, for coming on today. I mean, loads of insights in your industry there, and I'm sure people are having a bit of a deeper. Yeah, we've gone quite deep in what the future holds for us. It's going to get me thinking now after this call. I do appreciate you coming on. Any closing notes? Anything you'd like to add right before we go?
No, I think you nailed it with the Boston machine gun dogs sorting out my event guests. Done.
Yeah. Oh, amazing. Thank you very much,
Good
Jonny.
stuff. Nice to see you. Take care, Roger.